Hi, my name is Kimberly, and I write the blog Keep the Tail Wagging, which is about raw feeding and raising dogs naturally. I also recently published my third book about raw feeding. It's Raw Feeding from A to Z, and it's basically taking my first book and I rewrote it and updated it with new information. And it's great for anyone who's new to raw feeding, considering raw feeding, or even anyone who has been feeding raw and is curious about another person's perspective on the diet. I started feeding raw back in 2013 because a veterinarian at the time told me that my dog, Rodrigo, wouldn't live long past his third birthday. I'm happy to say at the time of this video, he's 13 years old and thriving, and I know that raw feeding is the reason. So here I am wrapping up a weekend of meal prep. I started with beef, chicken, and pork, and yes, you can feed pork as long as it's human grade. Don't have to worry about any type of parasites. And here I'm doing duck. I had a case of 6 whole ducks the evening before. I chopped it up outside because it does make a mess. And now I'm taking it out of the stock pot and grinding it to begin my meal prep. In my last meal prep video, I mentioned that I use a base mix by Dr. Harvey's, but I didn't explain how I use it. Since I usually do or start with an 80-10-10, and that's 80% muscle meat, 10% bone, 10% organ meat, and trust me, I don't calculate that out. I just eyeball it and it's just sort of an estimate. But since I start with an 80-10-10, I add less of a base mix. If you look at the instructions on the base mix, it tells you to add it to muscle meat. It doesn't talk about organ meat and bone because basically the nutrients in those things are going to be covered in the base mix. But since I'm already adding the organ meat and bone, and I don't know if you can hear Rodrigo in the background, but he's making himself a nest. But since I'm already adding the organ meat and bone, my logic was that I can use less of a base mix. So I do. And I've had my dogs nutrient tested a couple times. I've had my recipes reviewed by certified nutritionists, and I'm covering all the bases. My dogs are eating a nutritious diet. I'm meeting their nutritional needs. So I wanted to share these meal prep videos to show you guys how easy it is for us to make food at home. You do not have to buy commercial raw. You do not have to work with a meal formulator unless that's easier for you and within your budget. So let's get to it. This is the organ mix. It's an organ blend by greentripe.com. And I'm just adding it to the 20-quart stock pot that I was using earlier to transfer the whole duck out of. So I just take my time opening it up. 99% of the ingredients I get, this is the base mix that I was talking about. 99% of the ingredients I get through a local raw food co-op, and I'll put a link to that below. And this is just me taking my time and adding a little bit of duck, a little bit of base mix, a little bit of duck, a little bit of base mix. And in fact, I'll end up transferring a little bit of this into the next bowl just to make it easier. And yes, I am putting my whole arm in there to get this done. It's just so much easier to dig deep and get to the bottom of a 20-quart pot using my hand and arms. I'm going to have to wash my hands anyway, so I don't mind getting dirty. As long as I can clean up afterwards, I'm good to go. So doing a meal prep like this, it takes anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes all the way up to an hour. Maybe 2 hours if I'm dealing with a whole lot of meat, but it doesn't take a lot of time. I usually place orders through the co-op probably once a month. I'm not ordering the same thing every month. I'm just ordering based on what my dogs need. I'm adding oysters to the meal prep. That's my source of zinc. To be honest, the first time I started doing this, I did it because someone else was adding it when I was watching a video on YouTube, and it looked like a good idea, and it turns out it's good for my dogs. And so I do it not to every meal prep, but probably every other meal prep. So now what I'm going to do is wash my hands. So for all of the anti-raw people watching this, yes, guess what? The reason why I don't get sick from the bacteria is because I wash my hands. Novel idea, right? So after I finish cleaning up, I'm going to transfer all the food to a freezer-safe container, label it, and then transfer that into the freezer. If I don't label it, I won't know what it is once it's frozen because it all pretty much looks like ground meat to me. I have 2 freezers, and a fridge and freezer. Organization is very important to me, so as you can see, I have it organized, and maybe I'll do a meal tour soon. Pick up my book, Raw Feeding from A to Z, and don't forget, keepthetailwagging.com.